We'll be looking at echoes, as I said today. Also, this video is going to be chapter-wise divided. So, using the timestamp, I'm going to create different chapters or sections to this video. So, please look down in the description for the chapter sections, and you can click on the timeline to skip straight to whichever section that you want to view. Carrying on, sound waves, just like light waves, since we have also looked at light now, follows the laws of reflection. Sorry, is my sound not good? Kaza, is it better now? Maybe I just have to speak a little louder.
Yeah, it's good.
Okay, I think I was covering my mouth with my hand. I'll stop doing that. Sorry. Okay. So, sound waves also undergo reflection from hard surfaces, just as light undergoes reflection from reflective surfaces. So, the sound waves created by any source, and you always go back to the tuning fork. So, you represent sound waves kind of like that. Okay, that are emanating from that, with the understanding that the lines are actually representing your high pressure zones. And if say there is a hard surface like a wall or a cliff, then what's going to happen is the sound is going to get reflected from this surface backwards onto here. Okay, and of course, if you have a wall, let's say the same wall continues out over here, then the sound waves that strike the wall over here, that means the direction of their movement is in this direction, right? Then after reflection, the sound waves will move in this direction. Okay, so basically what will happen is after striking the wall surface, the waves will move in this direction. One moment. Isha is waiting to get admitted. Okay. One of the effects of this is that one of the effects of this and the fact that sound travels way slower than light, that is 330 meters per second approximately, is that if you stand in front of a wall or a cliff face and there aren't many objects around you that can absorb the sound, and I'll talk a little bit about the sound absorption also. What happens is that you will hear your own sound, the sound that you have produced, coming back to you. Okay, and that phenomenon is what is known as echoes. Okay. In fact, right now I'm sitting in class 7A, I think, in the cluster, and all the tables and chairs have been put away to the sides, and there isn't anybody in the class other than me and Rinaka sitting here to just observe the class. So what's happening is I am aware as I'm speaking that a very short while later I'm able to hear my own voice kind of moving about within the room. Okay, it's discernible. I can make it out. The point is that if the sound comes from a far enough object, okay, and I'll tell you how far it should go before we can make out, then the echo of the sound, that is the reflected sound waves, come back to you at a distinct time interval, and that time interval is the amount of time required by our brains to process that this is a completely different sound. Okay, that distance, yes.
Sir, can all chat please be disabled?
Beg your pardon?
Can all chat be disabled?
Yeah, it's an unnecessary distraction.
Okay, guys, you have to be careful with chatting, if you people are going to undertake random chatting during the class, then it's going to be disruptive for other people. So as of now, I have disabled the chat. Nobody can write to anybody. If you have to say something, please speak directly. This particularly goes out to right now Tanvi, Ashwath, nobody else. Okay, it looks like these two. I didn't intend to mention only these two people's name. I thought others were also involved. But anyway, please do not undertake chat. If you can tell me that you are not going to do random chatting, I'll restore chat again. Until then, please speak up if you have to say something. Yeah, Sonia?
I have a question.
Yeah, please
So,
ask.
in the note, they mentioned that if the sound comes right after, like before the original sound gets over,
Yeah.
it's not echo. Then
It's-
what
it's
is
a-
that called?
Yeah, okay. So, look, so to quantify what is an echo, in the sense to be able to distinctly say what is an echo, it might be a little bit of, hair splitting, because it's a subjective phenomena, right? If you are not able to make out the distinction between the original sound and the reflected sound, right, then you might not consider it an echo. You might say, I can't hear the echoing. Somebody else might say, yeah, I am able to hear the echoing. Okay, so in that sense, for sound, you will see it a lot. In fact, the last section of the sound chapter is about what is subjective and objective in sound. There are two or three things which are very, very subjective in sound. So you can't say it is specifically like that. Say, for example, loud. Okay, so to continue with Sonia's question, there's a lot of things about the about sound that are kind of subjective. It depends on the individual. Somebody might say this is a very loud sound, or you're speaking very loudly, and somebody else might say I don't think the person is speaking very loudly. So in that sense, you can't you can't give a subjective criteria. But since we are studying sound as a subject in physics, we might as well go ahead and give one description. Okay. So the way they do this is by saying, by figuring out one sort of an subjective, again, this is, whole thing is subjective. They say that there is a time interval within which if a sound comes from a source, our brains are able to identify it as two distinct sounds which are related by the phenomenon of echo. Okay, and I think they keep that as what, 0.6 seconds, am I right? There's some number that is given over there. You people can tell me what that is.
0.1, sir.
0.1 second. Okay, very good. So one subjective criteria that they say is if we are able to hear a sound which is distinct from itself by about 0.1 second, then we are able to know that there are two different sounds. Apparently, if the sound comes within this time interval, then there is no way for us to know that these are two distinct sounds. They kind of commingle with each other, and it sounds like a kind of what is known as a reverberation, but we don't study reverberation in class 10. So you can look that word up. So beyond 0.1 seconds, which is again very subjective, some people may be more sensitive and be able to distinguish an echo even within that time frame. They say that sounds which are then of a certain distance. So you see, you have a time frame and you also have the velocity. Okay. So if the time required for a sound to get reflected from a surface, right, and arrive back at you, is somebody in the waiting room? Yeah, sure. I just wanted to check this. When the chimes come of people stepping out of the class and coming to the waiting room and stepping into the class, there are some sounds that come. Are you all also able to hear it? Or no, only I can hear it?
No, sir.
It's only you.
Not today.
Achha, okay, it's only I can hear it. So you people come to know only if they send a message to you. Okay, got it. All right. So when the echo comes back to the person or to the source, whichever produced it. And the time interval that it takes for this to happen is less than, time interval takes this, is less than 0.1 seconds. And you know that the velocity is 330 meters per second. How far is the rigid object from the source? So you,
Sir,
yeah.
can you just repeat the last part? I didn't really get it.
Okay. So the question is, I could hear myself just now. That sounded so weird. Sounded like an echo. Okay. The question is that when can we say that an echo occurs? Was the original question. How do you know that it is going to be an echo? We say that that's a subjective matter. Maybe some people can have sufficiently fine hearing capacities, listening capacities to be able to say that there is an echo in situations where other people might say that there isn't any echo that they can make out. So first thing is it's subjective. Second thing is, well, we are studying it as a subject. The syllabus demands that we define the echo in a certain way. So therefore, we take another subjective criteria, which is that the time interval within which the brain is able to make out the distinction between two sounds which are connected, which comes from a reflection from a wall. So that time is fixed at 0.1 second. I think arbitrarily. I don't think there is any specific scientific reason why it is 0.1 seconds, but I think it's arbitrarily put at 0.1 seconds. You can look that up and tell me if it is so or if it is not so. And then I say that we can work out the rest, because if you say that the amount of time required for the sound to go from the source to the wall, reflected and come back to the source, if the time interval is 0.1 second, right? And we know that the wave moves at a velocity of 330 meters per second. What is the distance between the source and the wall? So you should be able to work that out by using the mechanics equations, right? Just directly velocity is equal to distance upon time. So if you use this equation,
So I can't see what you
We
just.
can't.
yeah. Distance is equal. Velocity is equal to distance by time. I know it's still off the board. Okay, now you should be able to see, right? So if you use that equation, you put velocity is 330 meters per second. Distance is what is unknown, right? And there's a small trick involved there. I hope you're able to see that. And the time required is 0.1 second. Can you calculate and tell me now what will be the distance in this case? So this is supposedly the smallest distance up to which a human being would not be able to discern the original sound from the echo. So can somebody do the calculation and let me know? Yes, Saumitri, go ahead.
Okay, so it won't be 33 meters because it's the distance traveled by the sound to the wall and back to you. So you have to half it.
Yeah, so that's the only trick over here that you have to keep in mind, which is that we are talking about an echo. So the time interval of 0.5 second is the time interval required for the sound to reach the surface and then come back. Okay, so it's traveling twice the distance. Okay, so my question specifically was, what is the distance between the source and the wall? All right, so total distance might come out to be 33 meters, will come out to be 33 meters. But the distance between the wall and the source, therefore, will be half that distance. Okay, so therefore, that will be around 16.5 to 17 meters. So this number, magic number, 17 meters, yeah, is the arbitrarily determined distance, which is the minimum distance that an object should be from an hard rigid surface to produce an echo. It might produce an echo at shorter distances for some people who are sensitive enough. And of course, distances greater than that, you will hear a distinct echo. So I don't know, most of you all must have experienced an echo at one place or the other. Even on campus, there are some places where if you speak loudly, you can hear an echo. It's interesting to try and figure out like where does the sound actually echo from. But anywhere where you have an open ground, like in the senior Odyssey, for example, you stand on one end and you clap and you can hear a distinct echo, but then there are also reverberations that are coming from the walls to the sides. But if you're in an open place and there is a large building or a large wall in front of you or a cliff surface, which is unclad cliff surface, that means it doesn't have any soil on top of it. So it's just like bare cliff surface. Then if you clap or make a noise, then the sound comes back to you. 33 seconds, seconds, what? What's that?
She was asking for the unit of time.
Yeah, unit will be in seconds. So that's, Vaishnavi, that's consistent, right? Velocity will be in meters per second. Time will be in seconds. So therefore, the distance will come out in meters. Okay. So it's good to keep a check on that also. Okay. So that's basically what you need to know as far as echoes are concerned. And then, of course, there is an equation which gives you a kind of a picture of, if you are given specific sums, then you use that equation to solve that sum. But this is the basic principle. And if you go from first principles, that it's the time required for a sound to go hit a surface and then come back to the source, and work it from that, then you should have no problems applying the equation. Sometimes people memorize the equation and then, if the situation in which is being talked about changes, then they kind of get confused. Say, for example, I'll just talk about one example problem now. Can you just please tell me how much time we have left? Yeah, Sonia?
I had another question. So they mentioned that we can use 340 at some places. So
They will specify.
do they specify, right?
They'll specify, yes. If they don't specify, then you can take it as 330 meters per second or whatever it is that is recommended in the textbook. Okay, I don't know. Has anybody looked into it? Do you know what's the recommended velocity? 330 or 340? Somebody told me 330 last class, so I took it as 330.
330.
330, okay. So the kind of question that is asked, Sonia, does that answer your question? Are you clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the kind of questions that can be asked is that, there are two cliff surfaces on either side. Okay. And there's somebody who's standing here and he fires a gun.
So we can't see the diagram.
Can you?
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay. Now, they might say that this is cliff A, this is cliff B, and he hears the echo of the sound in, so they'll give you the time interval that it takes for the echo to come from here, from B, and the time interval that it takes for the echo to come from A. So they give T1, T1, and they give T2, right? And they'll ask you the question, what's the distance between A and B? Okay, are you able to understand this question? So the time interval required for the echo to come from B and from A are given to you. Okay, so then they ask you what is the distance between the cliffs A and B.
Arun sir,
Yes.
apparently in the text, they're using 340 meters per second in the text.
Okay, then you keep it as 340 meters per second. Absolutely no problem. So whatever says in the textbook as the velocity of the sound, that's the number that you got to remember. If in the question they give a different number, let's say they say 330 330 or even 320 sometimes, or for the sake of ease of calculation, sometimes they also say 300. Then go ahead and use that value to do the calculation. It doesn't matter. But in the textbook, if it says 340, then you have to keep that in your mood, basically. Okay, so we will take up a problem of this kind. So today I will assign, give you an assignment from the Google Classroom, which will deal with problems of this kind. I'm not going to give you the equation in the textbook yet. I would like people to try using first principles to solve these problems, and then we will have a discussion about it in the next class. All right. So if there is any other questions or doubts that you have, we've got a couple of minutes left. Then we can talk about it now. Otherwise, we can stop. So just to finish answering Sonia's question, soundproofing works basically in exactly the same way as the other thing around, in which you want to cut out echoes. But basically what you want is you want a room which is cut off from sounds, right? So you just do the reverse of it. You put a thick absorbent surface in between the walls. Okay, so then there won't be any sounds from outside coming inside. I think that's how it works, but maybe I can find out and tell you more about that. Yeah, what about
So
Isha?
why doesn't this happen with light?
Why doesn't
This happen with light? What's the main difference here?
Well, when light
Like
reflects,
because of the
when light reflects back to you, you can make out that there is a reflection, right? That's how you look at yourself in the mirror.
no, but what I mean is it
The
doesn't
delay.
generally reflect with moon, right?
The delay, you mean? I didn't understand what you're saying. You mean the absorption?
So like that, yeah, light gets absorbed a lot, right? Why doesn't that happen with sound? Like sound also gets absorbed a lot, but like you only know mirrors and some things that can only reflect light compared to like the things that reflect sound.
Yeah, see, I think that's because basically the nature of light and sound are different in that sense, because sound is basically a mechanical wave. It actually pushes the particles mechanically. Okay, so the energy transfers are quite apparent, and there is a lot of energy dissipation that takes place. But it's not the case in light. There isn't much energy dissipation that takes place. So, being an electromagnetic wave, the mechanics of how it gets reflected, absorbed, are all different. So it's a fact that there is no energy dissipation that takes place in light. If you hit it off a surface which can reflect, it reflects. If you hit it off a surface that doesn't reflect, it doesn't reflect. It's quite interesting to study all the different things that happen. Like say for example, when you reflect light off a dielectric surface, like say glass, then there's something interesting that happens. The light which comes back reflected is polarized light. So if you shoot non-polarized light at a certain angle, the angle is called a Brewster angle. If you reflect unpolarized light at a certain angle on a dielectric surface like glass or even metal is also, polished metal is also a dielectric surface. The light that is reflected back is polarized, highly polarized in fact. So it's mind-boggling how those things work. I just know the phenomenon. I don't know. Therefore, what is the difference between light and sound as waves? I just don't know how to explain that. But that's how it works. It's a good question to ask, but I don't know the answer as yet. Clearly enough. Okay, shall we stop now? It's 11. I have to help.
Sir, I have one more question.
Sudesh sir with that. Why don't you email it to me? It's 11. I have another thing to do. Otherwise, I'll be happy to chat. So you send me an email and then we'll sort that out. Okay, guys. Bye-bye.